Okay, all right, we'll start the meeting then. Welcome everyone to our special council meeting. It's Thursday, April 21st. This is a Zoom meeting, and there is a bit of a hybrid going on here because we do have some in person. I'm going to call the meeting to order and welcome everyone. So I'll remind council of declaration of pecuniary interest if it arises, and we're going to move right into I guess we'll move right into delegations, Bob, or unless you want to let Michael do opening remarks here. But
yeah, through you, Mayor Martin, if we could just let perhaps Arya introduce the day, and then if the consultant.
Okay, thank you, Arya.
Through to the chair, good morning, Mayor, council, and members of the public. I am pleased to welcome everyone to the public meeting involving the proposed official plan and zoning amendment to prohibit the development of boathouses on Jack Lake. We want to thank members of the public for submitting written comments in advance of the meeting. And, you know, given the nature of the virtual environment, if there were any submissions that were accidentally misplaced, if they were accidentally omitted due to technical difficulties, we'd be more than happy to forward them over to our planning consultant. Members of the public keep their microphones turned off for to avoid any interruptions. And without further ado, I will turn it over to our planning consultants, Michael Keane and Alicia Ackroyd of FOTEN to lead the discussion.
All right, good morning, Mayor Martin and council and members of the public. My name is Mike Keane and I'm a land use planner with FOTEN Consultants. And as Arya mentioned, Alicia from my office is with me as well. And if you've been attending regular council and planning committee meetings, you would have met Alicia at this point. I'm wondering if we could pull the presentation up. I'm not sure if Bianca, if you have the ability to do that, or if there's the ability to pull up the PowerPoint presentation, or I can share my screen if that's the preferred method.
So
Michael wants to share a screen. Michael, we'll let you share
Okay.
your screen, please. Yeah, we'll just set you up here in a second. Is he good to go? Yeah. Okay. You're good to go, Mike.
Okay. And now I've just got to get it so I share here. One moment.
there we go.
Okay. Apologize for the technicalities there, but I do want to have a few visuals for all to see. And, you know, for council and staff and for the public, this may feel a little bit like deja vu, and in the same place April a year ago. And at that time, the public meeting was a little more broad. We were talking more broadly about Jack Lake. What happened over the summer was a refining of the issues to focus on the on-land boathouse matter. So just kind of building off of that summary, it goes all the way back to the direction from this council in 2019 to look at further limiting the upland boathouses. And, you know, basically Jack Lake was chosen as the test project for that initiative because it shares a border with North Kawartha, and North Kawartha already prohibits the upland boathouses. So a year ago, April 2021, my firm Foten produced an option report to council and looked at this general ban of upland boathouses on Jack Lake. And we proceeded through a series of public meetings all the way to adoption last fall. But due to some technical issues, we had to request that council repeal that bylaw because there were notice issues that we had to deal with. So that's really why we're right back here again today. And I just want to make sure the public have that context. In terms of the right now that the township has to deal with, there are policies in the zoning bylaw that prohibit water, but they do provide guidance overall for on-land boathouses. And an on-land boathouse is a structure that is within the 30-meter setback of the lake. The policies that were brought out through the last official plan update in 2011 are actually still under appeal. And that's important for when we start speaking about our recommendations in a moment. So in terms of surrounding neighborhood, and I'm focused in on just some of Havelock's immediate neighbors, you see that North Kawartha has a broad prohibition of boathouses. Same policies as Havelock right now, which is prohibiting in-water boathouses and permitting on land boathouses. And so there are some differences on how these matters are managed in the surrounding immediate neighborhood. In terms of the proposal, we are proposing amendments to both the official plan and to the zoning bylaw. And because those 2011 official plan policies remain under appeal, we believe it's necessary to add a policy to the official plan that specifically would prohibit boathouse construction on Jack Lake. And secondly, where the details really come in are the zoning bylaw, where we are suggesting the prohibition of the on-land boathouses on Jack Lake, but we're allowing for the repair and reconstruction of those legally existing boathouses. So there's policies to speak to the overall prohibition of boathouses, but there's also policies suggested in the legal non-conforming section to allow that repair and construction for those existing structures. And you can see this is really what that section would look like. What you see on the screen is section 4.22 of the zoning bylaw, and the red text is the additional wording that would be added to the marine facility section. So in terms of why we're here and why our recommendations are where they're at right now, the township's official plan already provides a good basis for the more contemporary regulation of shoreline development. And in prohibiting boathouses on Jack Lake, it's consistent with the neighboring regulations that North Kawartha already has in place. And so we are recommending the prohibition of boathouses on Jack Lake for its entirety, ultimately to ensure those protections are in place along that 30 meters setback. Now, a couple things I want to talk about in this next slide. One is a little bit about where we are in the process, and you can see that on the table there's a series of reports, and where we are today is essentially right in the middle again. We're at this statutory public meeting process, and so the purpose of today is an opportunity for the public to voice either support, concerns, or questions for the process and for the proposal. And at this point, we've received 17 comments in addition to the comments that were submitted previously. And those comments provide a mix of questions and a mix of support or a mix of concerns. Now, one of the points I want to touch on is this issue. There's an issue that's been raised about fairness, like why only Jack Lake? Why not apply it to all in the township? And I think, you know, I appreciate that comment. And I think it's, you know, I think what I want to repeat here is that really the prohibition is for two reasons. It's already regulated, but I think residents of the township should also consider this as a pilot project that will likely be expanded to the rest of the township in time. Certainly that would be my advice as a planner. When you look at the county official plan right now, which if folks have been involved with that process, there were a series of open houses that have recently occurred, and there is a draft document, a draft official plan document, and you can see the real focus on 30-meter setback being a minimum protective zone on and around lakes. And there's always a balancing act with that policy where it's really focused on new development, while existing cottages that are close to the lake can typically be rebuilt with certain proofs. If they want to expand, there's usually policies that talk about moving back. So the idea of no buildings within that 30-meter setback is not a new one. It's been around since the 1980s, the 1990s. It's captured in provincial policy. The Natural Heritage Reference Manual is a good example of capturing all of the setbacks and the reasons for those setbacks. And that's a document from 2010 that isn't even the new policy direction, but probably the easiest way to understand the science behind those recommendations that ultimately get captured in official plans. So when we move forward from statutory public meeting, there will be a recommendation report that goes to council, and part of that report will be to address the public comments in writing, and then ultimately present that material back to council for a decision. There will be two steps in the approval process because we're kind of in a weird state of timing depending on the county's official plan, but the county is the approval authority for official plan amendments, while the township is the approval authority for zoning bylaw amendments. So there's a bit of a two-step process that will occur following this meeting and dependent on council's recommendations. So that's my presentation for today, and I will stop sharing, and I am available to assist with questions and comments depending on how council wishes to proceed. Thanks for the chance to speak to everyone today.
Okay, thank you, Michael. And yeah, it seems like this has been ongoing for quite a while, but you're right. This is one of those lakes that we share the lake, and there's different rules on one side of the lake than the other. And I think it was looked at trying to mirror and make the lake all consistent. But you do bring up a good point, why just Jack's, but I think from council's side of things, it was Jack's that came forward asking for, or a lot of people on Jack's, I won't say everyone, looking for something similar to North Kawartha. So one question before I open up to council is the report back, when would that be? Like how long do you expect to take here to get this report back to us?
Yeah, well, to you, Mr. Chair, it won't take us long to get a report back to staff for consideration. So I'll likely default to staff as to when they want to bring that forward to you, but it's certainly something that I have no intentions of delay, and could have it back within a few weeks if that is council's desire.
Okay, that sounds good. Okay, does council have any questions for Michael before we allegations? Go ahead, Councillor Webb.
Just for clarification, I don't know if I missed it. In terms of existing boathouses, Michael, what applies there? Or like going forward, would they be able to repair existing boathouses, or is it a complete shutdown of boathouses on Jack Lake?
Yes, through you, Mr. Chair, and to you, Councillor Webb. We are purposefully setting up the policies to be clear that people that have legal boathouses can essentially keep them forever. And in the event of repair, they would be able to repair and rebuild those structures under our policy recommendations. It really is just stopping new boathouses. And maybe just on a small segue into that to just help council understand this issue. We asked how many building permits have been issued in the last 10 years, and staff were able to pull these facts for us. And they said that between 2016 and 2021, so not quite 5 years as opposed to 10, there were 16 boathouse permits issued in the entire township. And of the 16, 7 of those were on Jack Lake. So then the rest were scattered amongst your other lakes. So that just, I think, of, not that there's a lot of these going on over the recent years, but it is every time it's an issue that it's more development within your 30-meter setback. So that's why it's such an important issue.
Thank you for that, Michael.
And that was one of the concerns with council is by doing what we're doing right now, are we opening up a flood of boathouses because people are concerned that they're not going to be able to later. Hopefully that doesn't happen. And I think if they have to have them built within a year or started within a year, hopefully that deters people from trying to do something like that. But Councillor Ellis, you had a question?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, just to add to Michael's comments regarding the existing boathouse and repair, I believe not too awful long ago, we had a presentation at council where somebody wanted to do a repair to an existing, and I believe the decision of council was that it was above and beyond a repair, and I believe they wanted to expand. So I'm just curious, I haven't read the language regarding existing, but maybe Michael could comment on that specific type of item.
Certainly, and through you, Mayor Martin, to you, Councillor Ellis, excellent question, and it's something that I'm sure is very challenging for your staff to deal with, because as cottages change hands, proving that a structure was legal can be hard to do, because many of these structures, really anything built in the 1970s or earlier would be hard to find a building permit for it. So there is a bit of onus on staff in particular to feel comfortable with the legality of the structure before they issue a permit. And there are a couple ways that can be achieved. One is obviously if it was a recent build, the township will have a record of those building permits and would easily allow repair, reconstruction, whatever's required. The harder ones are the old ones. And sometimes the easiest way to prove that is simply with an affidavit that the structure existed by a certain date. An affidavit is a sworn document, and there's a level of trust that we impose with those types of documents. But if somebody came in and said, I need to rebuild my boathouse, and here's an affidavit from my neighbor who's lived on the lake since 1955, and the boathouse has been there all that time. That would be another method of proving that that document existed to allow for the rebuild. So there are methods, you know. I think what it comes down to is that if it has a weird smell to it, like it's not fully legitimate, that's where you need to investigate it, and you have the staff to do that. For the most part, if people are really just trying to keep the boathouse from floating away or falling down, you know, there's some balancing that will take place as to putting it up. If it's a cottage on the water that is being called a boathouse, you're going to know that that was not a legal structure. So there's ways that your staff will deal with it, and it's certainly not going to be easy from time to time.
Okay.
So our chief building official or inspector would be involved in some of those cases where you would look at the building and say it's not repairable, it's basically a tear down type. So I guess there would be language to address that through the CBO.
There is, and through you, Mayor Martin, the language in the bylaw that we're proposing, like if you reach that point that you're speaking about, Councillor Ellis, where the building is basically condemned, it could still be entirely rebuilt. It just has to stay within the confines of what's fine. You know, folks may try to stretch it a bit, build it a little taller, a little wider, whatever the case might be. So that's where the onus of proof will be on those owners to prove that what they have was legal. That if it is in a condemned state, they're going to have to prove it's in a condemned state, and then put the proper drawings together to have that that boathouse rebuilt.
I think the one we were referring to, the proponent wanted to expand, and that's where the municipality denied it.
Yeah, certainly.
Thank you, Mike.
Thank you.
Okay, has council got any other questions with regards to this before I open it up to the delegations? Okay, I'm not seeing any. I'm just gonna, we have one in-person delegation, so I was gonna move one up to the front here. Edward Dirks is in person in the chamber, so I'll open it up. He can be the first delegation, and then we'll follow the numbers after that. But Edward, you are in the chamber. If you'd like to come up to the podium and do your presentation.
Yeah, thank you. Can you hear me clearly, I hope?
Yeah, just speak up. That's the big thing there. That
All right. Michael, could I ask you, you know, the initial map on your presentation, could you please pop that up, please, for my discussion? Thank you.
Just going to take me a moment if you want to talk while I try to get that up, because I actually closed my presentation for network stability issues.
Well, it just helps with my discussion, so thank you. Currently, we all are aware that we have one on the water boathouse, which caused quite controversy. But how many boathouses do we have on HBM Jack Lake? This is a question for you, Michael, or maybe the planning HBM. I'm not sure. I'm interested to know how many boathouses we have.
I don't know that we have. I don't know that we.
So at the moment, that is difficult to kind of determine through our. We haven't had enough time.
Yeah, that wouldn't be available for today. We're getting some feedback there.
So, because my next question was going to be kind of echoing in here. How can we fix that?
No.
Want me to turn this down?
Nope.
No.
Thank you.
Okay, so my next question, how many of those boathouses are on island properties? And how many of those boathouses? And we don't know the answer to the first question, so we don't know the answer to the second question.
No.
It had 7 boat permits created in the last 6 years. And let's assume that the average, the average one is 10 to 12 feet. We've had about 100 feet of frontage affected over the last 5 to 6 years, which results in about 20 feet per year max. And I wonder, what is the total frontage of the entire Jack Lake shoreline? Because if it's only 20 feet a year, and the total frontage of Jack Lake is your map here, knowing my property, I should have introduced, this was more a question taken for Michael. I may be off track. My property fee is 500,000 shoreline, and we're talking about 20 feet here. I'm talking about dry land boat as a community group. Should not be dry land. I believe it's up. I'm sorry to come in last minute. When I think of it, 20 feet per year. So then I have a few questions and reasons. I'm kind of math, and I like to do in calculations, and I don't like to do it in general. And this is how many properties are governed by HBM. Do we know that?
Analysis, I mean, we included in the previous, we're currently at the moment, I don't have that.
Oh, either, but I wonder what the ratio is, boathouses and so on. And I also wonder how many boats have land access versus island access. So I'd like to know that ratio, because I believe the island people, it's a different story for the island people. The people that are on the mainland, they have the ability to park their boats or their marine facilities, driveway, view the road to the back of their property facility. I should have clarified, I am an island property, and island people that option. The boathouse is their storage facility. Wonder whether at the end, just pointing out that island people need to head back for an island property. Answer the questions. When I
You'll have
read
to
the
pick it up. You will have to pick, there is a 10-minute limit here.
Michael, so I apologize for that. I will pick it up. So the adjacent properties, townships all have, the only adjacent township that has this ban right now is North Kawartha. All the other ones don't. Why are we following North Kawartha? What, are they guiding us? You don't have it on Crow Lake, and that's a shared lake. And we just got the answer, how many properties does JLA represent within the HBM? We don't know that, but they represented themselves. So voice, how many other HBM? So there was a reference made in the report by by Michael to a meeting from 2019. I was here in this is when it all started pre-COVID. And this room was full, more than 3/4 full of people that were against banning the boathouses. And now we state that there's 12 of 18 respondents on property owners within HBM. Do they have to be a member of HBM to respond to that? 4 of them were against the ban, and 12 of the 18 were for. During that pre-COVID meeting, it was during the report from Michael states that there was a survey presented that was overwhelming. It was determined during that 2019 meeting that of the opinion of the people in attendance that survey was somewhat manipulated, and it didn't provide or portray a true consensus of the Jack Lake Association members. I'm just going to finish off by saying that a couple of things. One is, unfortunately, the JLA board, April the 9th, they admitted that it was maybe a mistake, but so I questioned their decision was made based on all the facts. Considering I can't, as we stand, I cannot get the facts on the number of boathouses versus land and access. And that to me is an informed decision. I'm going to wrap it up here. Mary and I have been sole owners of an island property with approximately 3,000 feet of shoreline. We're the only property on the island, and we just want to retain our current options, including a dry land boathouse and/or a marine storage facility. Land access owners typically have a storage option to build one at the rear of their properties. Since many island properties already have grandfathered boathouses, can you please consider adding an amendment which will allow the few remaining island properties the option to build dry land boathouses and/or marine storage facilities that complies to the current building codes? Thank you for your time. I'm just asking for an amendment at the end of the day.
Thank you, Mr. Dirksen. That's you make some good points here, and I've seen other comments in some of the other literature that we've received around islands versus mainland, and that'll all be looked at, I'm sure, with Michael when he brings the report back. The meeting that we had that was a full house there, I think one of the reasons it was a full house is we've narrowed it down here to boathouses, where that meeting included cold water and designation and development, and it really sparked a lot of interest, to say the least. So that's why we've kind of split it up here into 2 pieces. And this part here is just to deal with boathouses. And you're right, it is just, we do have another lake we share water with, you know, but today we're just talking about Jack's Lake, and I'm sure everything will be looked at that you're talking about, because we've heard that over and over as far as storage on islands, and mainland has an option to build a garage type of thing at the back of their property or whatever. So all of that will be looked at and taken into consideration, but I thank you for your delegation today.
I thank you, and I just reiterate, a majority of the island properties, we don't know the actual number, and I could just visualize the lake, already have boathouses on them, or a storage facility, and we're going to impede the ones that haven't already done so. And to tell you the truth, I would imagine you will get a flood of applications if you do proceed with this. And that's not really what we want. The only reason I would apply is to keep my options open.
Okay.
Not because I really want one. I haven't made that decision at this point in my life.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you. And it'll all be taken into consideration. So I'll look for a motion to receive. Do you want to do the individual delegation receiving them, Bob?
No, through you, Mayor
Okay,
Martin, we
all right,
received
that's
them all
good.
at the end.
Okay, so I'll follow the list now from now through, and our next submission is from Ambrose Moran, and I think this comes into where they're from on the lake. So, and if they're a part of our township. So Ambrose, welcome. I think I see his name on here. All right. There we go.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Good, thank you very much. I made a submission on a week or so ago, and I'm just going to go over it briefly, and then I'll make a few more comments. So that submission was dated the 18th of April. Basically, environmental planning encourages buffer zones around lakes to protect water quality. The province of Ontario has in recent years advanced the concept through the provincial policy statement and the growth plan. An official plan policy has imposed increasing water setbacks to development to protect the buffer zone and to screen development for visual impacts and preserve the natural beauty of our landscape. Setting development of new cottages back 100 feet and then exempting at-shore boathouses is a significant planning contradiction. And bylaw enforcement is challenged as traditionally these structures at the shoreline become guest cabins. Questions been coming up about other neighboring municipalities. I want to make it clear that all the townships in the county of Haliburton, which there are 5 townships and about 600 lakes, and then in the district of Muskoka, there are 6 townships. They all prohibit or disallow in some way on-land boathouses. Those lakes share the same topography that we do. They're all in the Precambrian Shield. So they do that to ensure that there's the integrity of the vegetation zone is protected for water quality issues around the lake. And many of the northern United States with similar lakes to us have prohibited quite a long time ago on-land boathouses. In my submission, there's always this question about where's the science, and I provided a long list of references that were included in a really good document called Vegetation Buffer Zones by the Muskoka Lake Watershed Council, and their summary of the importance of retaining buffer zones around lakes which are a no-build area. So that's the basis of my submission. And I just want to say that I fully support the recommendations of your consultant at the moment regarding the official plan amendment and the zoning bylaw amendment. In short, there's no shortage of credible scientific literature in both Canada and the United States supporting the need for these buffer zones. And I can make a few more comments about that come up in some of the submissions. It was an indication that it was unfair to directly prohibit them on Jack's Lake properties. It gives the impression that it doesn't happen very many that Jack's Lake is unique in Havelock-Belmont-Methuen as much as it's in the Precambrian Shield, has a different type of topography than some of your other lakes, so it's unique. It's also unique, so we have another jurisdiction that's already proceeded with that. There also was a suggestion there should be an exemption for storage buildings, but the county official plan that's just being finalized lists what's exempted in accordance with the provincial policy statement and the growth plan, and storage buildings are not exempted in the 100-foot setback. The bordering municipalities such as Duro, Dummer, and Selwyn that was mentioned, those townships are not in the Canadian Shield, and they don't have the same fragile environment that we're dealing with. Township Muskoka Lakes is famous in North America as having the most generous provisions, regulations for boathouses, but they don't in fact allow any on-land boathouses. They protect their buffer zone by not allowing on-land boathouses. They only allow in-water boathouses. So in summary, there's very little demand for on-land boathouses in Havelock-Belmont-Methuen. I hear the numbers this morning, they're a bit surprising to me, but when you say there's building permits issued for boathouses, some of those might have been for repairs. My understanding on Jack's Lake, since 2012, there's only been 3 boathouses built, 2 of which were instantly converted to guest cabins, and 1 is currently under construction, which destroyed a large amount of natural shoreline and raised the anxiety levels of people on the lake to the point the Jack's Lake Association has asked Havelock-Belmont-Methuen to protect our shorelines with a prohibition of on-land boathouses. So my ask is that all the members of council vote to do the right thing and support the planning consultant's recommendations, both on the zoning amendment and the official plan amendment. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ambrose. Yeah, I'll open it up to council if they have any questions for clarification or anything from Ambrose. He did supply quite a few slides there with some examples around other areas. So if there's no questions for Ambrose, thank you, Ambrose, and I'll move on to the next, Oren Steinman. Oren, are you there?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah. Hi. First of all, thank you very much for allowing me to speak. I very much appreciate it. I'm a Jack Lake cottager for approximately 35 years. To start off, I'd like to just say that I am in agreement with the prohibition for both environmental reasons and sightline reasons. And however, I do see the issue of a small type of storage shed near the water. I'm not talking right on the shoreline necessarily, maybe 20, 30 feet back. People have paddles, they have life jackets, ropes, other things that are used consistently around the water. And some of those things are safety issues, such as life jackets. And I think there should be some sort of accommodation, very strict accommodation that cannot be changed by somebody coming and saying, I need an extra foot here, I need an extra foot there. That can't be turned into a living accommodation. It could be used near a dock or 30 feet back to store items for safety and convenience, rather than having to go back to your garage, which would be behind a cottage, 100 feet. Now you're talking 130 feet. So I'm not suggesting that the amendment be postponed I should say the prohibition be postponed to find a way to work this amendment in, but it's something I think that could be looked at in the near future after the prohibition has been put in place, to help people not break the law when it comes down to wanting some sort of storage shed around their property. And that's really all I wanted to say. After being on the lake for so many years, one of the things that is very much appreciated is when you drive around Jack Lake, there aren't big boathouses made out of glass and steel, and there aren't a ton of marine rails all over the place that are very unsightly. And, as well as the environment doesn't just mean the saving the lake's environment from weeds and keeping fish alive. The environment is also on our eyes and what we see. And I think it's important that the peace you get from looking at the lake is part of our environment. So if we can figure out a way to get a storage shed for people that doesn't really affect the sight lines, I think that would be a bonus. That's all I really have to say.
Very good. Thank you, Aaron. And yeah, that's well put. So I'm sure all of those things will be taken into account here, and because you're not the only one that has said that. So thank you very much for your presentation. Okay. Our next person for delegation was Alex Costu. Alex, welcome. I'll give you a chance to. And after Alex, it'll be Paolo, just so you know. So Alex, welcome.
Thank you. Can you hear me all right?
Yeah.
Okay, good. I'm still in Dubai. I'm far.
Oh,
Uh, Good morning, Mayor Martin, Council, and fellow Lakers, and thank you once again for the opportunity to participate in this public forum. I am president of Jack Lake Association, and as you know, the board has supported Boathouse Prohibition for several years, and we've provided council with a number of submissions, and I just have a short one that follows. At our last board meeting on April the 9th, the Jack Lake Board voted again to support Hub Council's bylaw amendment prohibiting dry land boathouses on Jack Lake. I want to thank Michael for his presentation and also Ed Dirks. I spoke with Ed and his wife yesterday, and I think he raises some really good points, especially in regard to islands. But I'm just going to continue. I will reiterate what Ambrose and Michael have said, and Oren as well to some extent, but I just, for good measure, I'm going to put forward about 6 points as to why it is we support amendment. And the first, as has been mentioned, uniform regulatory structure. We feel it's important from an environmental regulatory standpoint to bring consistency and uniformity with the system already in place in North Kawartha, has unique status as a cold water trout lake. It's counterintuitive to have one part of the lake protecting this status while the other part doesn't. Even though North Kawartha is the smaller part of the lake doesn't know that. The fish don't know that. It's all one body of water and environment around it. So that's our first reason. Secondly, sustainable lake environment is synonymous with a healthy buffer zone. Ambrose has spoken to this. The protection and enhancement of the lake's shoreline, as well as the 30-meter buffer zone, are key to ensuring a sustainable lake environment. It's pretty well established, and there is science on this. Cutting down trees, removing vegetation, installing hard surfaces on the shores buffer zone creates runoff. It's injurious to the water, habitat, and wildlife, including the fish, and it encourages invasive species. Further to that, boathouses also affect the following. Oren has talked about the visual character of the waterfront. The introduction of highly visible structures on the shoreline has the potential to affect views from neighboring properties. We all want to be good neighbors and not obstruct the beauty of the view of the lake. Due to their larger overall footprint, boathouses can prevent sunlight from reaching the littoral and riparian zones, thereby altering the characteristics of the aquatic ecosystem. The potential for more contaminants to leach into the water are exacerbated. For instance, if you put an asphalt shingle roof on the boathouse. Additionally, exterior illumination creates light pollution right at the shoreline, and it just happens to be the case. If you have a boathouse on the shoreline, you're going to light it up, and there'll be a lot of light coming through in the evening. It's not possible to separate the building of boathouses within the 30-meter buffer zone from ensuring sustainable, responsible development on the lake. And as has been mentioned, the setback already exists for other building structures, and the building of boathouses is simply inconsistent with this established policy. Number 3, at capacity water body, and this has also been mentioned, the protection of the buffer zone is even more important in the case of an already fragile ecosystem. Jack Lake for many years, and its largest bay, Sharps Bay, has been recognized by the province, by the county, and also by and most recently in the 2022 official plan draft, and the municipalities as at capacity cold water. And by virtue of these designations, it is a more fragile ecosystem. And it's even more important to curb buildings within the 30-meter buffer zone. Lakeshore capacity planning has been practiced for a long time, 25, 30 years in Ontario. During this time, Ministry of Environment, provincial government, regional staff have modeled or accumulated files on more than 1,000 inland lakes. Of these, about 30% have been declared to be at development capacity because of high phosphorus levels. 45% of the lakes that are at capacity are lake trout lakes, in which cold, well-oxygenated fish habitat is threatened by further shoreline development. And that goes back to 2007 in the provincial handbook. Number 4, Peterborough County Draft Official Plan to the January 2022 and Shoreline Conservation Initiative. Townships falling within the county's jurisdiction are obliged to adopt the minimum standard imposed in the county's official plan. At subsection 9.4, the OP states, preservation of a naturally vegetated shoreline is quote unquote encouraged in order to minimize destruction. Much of the most extensive damage currently being done to shorelines on the Kawartha Lakes is occurring during new building on existing lots, during replacement and expansion of existing dwellings. Specific firm protections for the natural vegetation and landscape within all required shoreline setbacks are needed to help prevent further damage. Havelock-Belmont-Methuen's current OP also identifies natural aesthetics, natural shoreline at the lake as important. Stringent 30 for buildings is reasonable, and as I've said before, the setback also should apply to boathouses. There's no difference. Number 5, our own mission. Jack Lake Association's mission is to conserve the lake for future generations, take care of the gift that we all share. According to this mission, our default sides with conservation and represents the lake's interest in the spirit of progressive lake stewardships, modernizing perceptions for shoreline development. Sorry, I'm just trying to run through this. I'm reiterating things that have already been presented. Property values are related to the health of the environment, so it's important to preserve values for future generations. We think prevention is the best remedy. We don't want to be the next Lake Simcoe. That may be a stretch for some, but ultimately that's where it goes if not regulated. And finally, number 6, boathouses are not just boathouses anymore. The few that we've seen on the lake tend to be more like bunkies, living spaces, sleeping spaces. And as real estate values go up, the tendency is to build big. We're not talking about 1940s, 1950s, sweet little boathouses that dot the lake. These are big. Because townships often lack resources to provide comprehensive enforcement, these properties are seldom regulated despite a variety of infractions. It's not unusual to see new properties brightly lit up at night, increasing both the level of noise and light pollution. And that's it for me. Thank you very much for allowing me to make this presentation. And I hope you vote like the last time. Thank you.
Alex. And I'm getting some feedback, but you're a good example of HBM's mission here this term has been to try and get communication out there and open it up for everyone. And if you can attend from Dubai, we must be doing something going in the right direction here anyways.
Thanks.
And the one other comment you made about the fish not knowing where they are, I've heard that the fish like the Havelock side of the HBM side like better than the other side, but I don't know if that's true or not. So thank you for this. And everybody's had some good points here. And it's a respectful meeting, and I thank everybody for that. So the next delegation here is Paola Giuliani, and hopefully I said that right. Welcome, Paola.
Thank you very much, Mayor Martin. I hope I'm coming through clear. Just want to say thank you for this opportunity to speak before the committee of members of council and staff. I want to start by full disclosure that I have a marine facility, and therefore I'm speaking as a person who is perhaps not losing any entitlement. But I believe that the community on the lake deserves full and proper information to understand the issue and provide comments back to council before the decision is made. And, council has already made the decision once, and I'm going to concentrate on things that hopefully will make you reconsider the reasons for your initial decision. I am here to say that I object to both the OPA and the zoning bylaw amendment. I believe those prohibitions are an extremely strong tool that the municipality is using, and there are other tools available at the municipalities discretion. First of all, I do want to talk about the fairness issue, and I appreciate your consultant talking about the fairness issue. In this particular case, notwithstanding the fact that there's a political boundary through the lake, the municipality is saying that they are going to do and make policy changes and zoning amendments in the public interest only for the cottage owners on Jack Lake. If council is making this kind of significant decision, they really have to be looking at it on a municipal-wide basis, and they have to apply it fairly across the municipality. I think this is a big risk for the municipality. It's challengeable, and so I think it's something you should consider. I heard your consultant saying that it's a bit of a pilot, and maybe that's the case, although I don't think it's very clear, and I don't know if the residents within the municipality or cottage owners or people who own properties on lakes in the municipality then. Otherwise, I think you would have many other cottage owners here at this meeting saying, hold on, this may impact other lakes in the municipality. I want to provide council with my thought and opinion before they make this decision, because it will bias any future decision on the rest of the municipality. So those are my thoughts there. And I understand that other municipalities have done this, but they've done it, I believe, on a comprehensive basis. They haven't done it by singling out one particular lake, as far as I am aware. And so please consider that, and please make sure that the residents in the municipality are aware that this could very likely transfer to all the lakes in the municipality, and in which case you'll have perhaps a lot of concerned people who may not be too happy. Secondly, I just want to talk about impacts. And this is impacts to people who own property. We're private property owners. We understand that municipality has to put in certain requirements to protect both safety and the environment, and I'm all for that, of course. But it's always a balancing act between protecting the environment and protecting what rights and enjoyment people have on their properties. The environmental impact is an issue, but the fact that we have cottages on the lake, the fact that we have roads leading to the lake, those are all causing environmental impact. Everything, causes impact to various degrees. Jet skis cause impact, and I'm not a big supporter of those on the lake. But all I'm saying is that everything generates impact, and you have to balance whether and through proper regulation will be causing significant detrimental impact to the water quality. Spent a lot of talk about the buffer. Controlling boathouses is only protecting some small part of the buffer. Buffers are impacted by all sorts of activity which are not regulated and can't be controlled. And so you're not simply doing this to protect the buffer, because there are other things that can happen there. Then I want to talk about convenience. And you've heard people say that it's pretty inconvenient to be 100 feet away from the high water mark when you have certain things like paddles and life jackets. I really think that the people in the municipality have to understand this is not just prohibiting a boathouse that fronts on the water. This is prohibiting any shed, whether it's small enough that it doesn't need a building permit, or whether it's large enough that does need a building permit and complies with your zoning code. It affects your ability to put any structure, building within 100 feet of the water. So you can't build a 4x4 shed with a roof, even though you don't need a building permit in any proximity to the water 100 feet, because you will not be in compliance with this bylaw. And that means you are going to have to go much further to put away your equipment. And Maybe it's worth it for some people, and for some people it's not. You have to start thinking about accessibility. Like it or not, we as cottage owners are probably growing older, and accessibility and distance is always an issue for people on lakes. I'd like to talk about the legal non-conforming use matter. Yes, anyone who has a legal boathouse built prior to the bylaw will enjoy that privilege. And I want to point out, in terms of your numbers, you will have boathouses that were built by building permit because they exceeded 100 square feet. But you also have boathouses that were built without a permit because a permit was not required because they were smaller than 100 square feet. And that is something you should consider in your analysis of numbers as well. I think your consultant did a good job, and I think you, Mr. Mayor, probed him on legal non-conforming status. It's very complicated. It's regulated by both the Planning Act and the Building Code. It's very complicated for the typical cottage owner to deal with the legal non-conforming use. You have to prove that it was legal non-conforming. You have to prove what size when it was legal non-conforming. You have to maintain that status. If you want to improve it, suppose someone's boathouse falls down because of a windstorm, and they want to come to the municipality and replace it, and they want to improve the environmental impact by setting it back. That is a very complicated process. They will have to come to you, council, and get approvals for those amendments. And quite frankly, with the official plan amendment and zoning bylaw you're proposing, you shouldn't be approving those because they will not meet the four tests of the Planning Act for variances, and they certainly wouldn't meet the test for rezoning. So the legal non-conforming status, although you're providing it to people, I don't think people truly understand the difficulties and the complexities of dealing with that when the time comes that they have to do something that would be allowed. And I would ask that perhaps your consultant could, in their future report, actually spell out the process that would be required to replace a legal non-conforming boathouse on land. I also want to point out that there were some good, many good comments made at this meeting by people on both sides of the story. I appreciate everyone's belief in protecting the environment. I also believe that there is extreme hardship for people on islands. They do deserve, I believe, special permissions to deal with those situations. I am not an island owner, but I do believe that accessibility and hardship is something that the municipality should consider in that regard. Lastly, I just add that I appreciate the opportunity to speak. I appreciate the work of all your staff and council in reviewing the matter. I hope that council will consider all these matters before making the next decision. So thank you very much.
Well put, and everybody did a good job here today to get their point out respectfully. So thank you everyone for that. That's the end of the delegations I have listed here. And I just want to reassure everyone that council doesn't take anything lightly, and we've put a lot of time into this, and we are listening to everyone. And it is a little different, I guess, maybe by doing one lake, but the request came in, and that's why we've been looking at it. So moving forward, we'll look forward to a report coming back from Michael Keane, and then we'll try and move forward with this thing and be as expedient as possible to come to a solution here. But is there any other questions from council with regards to where we're at today? Okay. Well, I'll look for a motion to receive all the delegations that we had today, and all their comments have been taken here and will be looked at. So is there a motion for Dirk? Seconded by Deputy Mayor Giroux. All in favor? And that's carried. Okay, well, thank you, everyone. And then next we have, so all the submissions have been, we've received them all and we've read them all, and Michael has them. And there was some that came in late last night. And if anybody's concerned about those, they have been put into the file too. So everything will be looked at, and all the ideas that everyone has, they are a little bit all over the place, but for the most part, I'm sure we can come up with something that'll work for majority. We'll never please everyone, but hopefully we can come up with a solution here that that works for the majority. Barry, is your hand up?
It will be. It will be.
Okay. All right then. So I'll look for a motion to receive the submissions that came in and add them to the file for VOTAN. Somebody want to move that?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, motion to receive.
Okay, moved by Councillor Ellis, seconded by Councillor Webb. All in favor? And that's carried. Okay then, and okay, so that's all we have for today. If there's no other questions, I will look for a motion for the confirming bylaw for today's meeting. Moved by Councillor Webb, seconder. Deputy Mayor Giroux. All in favor? And that's carried. And the next is a motion to adjourn, and I see Councillor Pomeroy waving his hand there, and I'll look for a seconder for that. Councillor Ellis. All in favor? And that's carried. Okay, thank you, everyone. I do have to jump over to another meeting here with Crow Valley, so thank you for today, and I don't think there's any other questions, is there, Bob? Meeting's closed?
Nope, through you, Mayor Martin, the meeting has been adjourned.
All right, thank you, everyone, and we'll be talking.